Okay. Well, team, we're in a home stretch now. So we're in a session, Kubernetes cost optimization for a smarter cloud spend. The time is flying by. I'm the host, Steve Beck. I am the TBM sales leader for the Americas. Hopefully you had a chance to kind of be inspired on the last session from Robbie around Invisi and all things ESG and how that's going to affect us. So this is going to be around Kubecost. And so with that, please don't hesitate to ask questions in chat, and I'm going to hand it off to Joe.
Thanks, Steve. Hey, everybody. Hope you're having a wonderful day. I'm Joe. I head up product marketing for Kubecost. We're a recently acquired IBM company. I'm going to talk a little bit about what we do and share how we are a necessary tool for DevOps and development teams when it comes to optimizing their Kubernetes-related costs and improving the return on their cloud investments. First, thanks to everybody for joining. I know you're taking up time out of your busy schedules and your busy days to do some learning, so I appreciate in advance you being here and spending some time with me. As I mentioned, Kubecost is a recent addition. The announcement of our acquisition was made in September of last year. It's been a busy handful of months since then. We were acquired largely to help broaden the hybrid cloud cost management capabilities of IBM's FinOps suite. And being able to work specifically with containerized costs and containerized utilization is a novel and necessary capability, and one that we're able to add some strength and some reinforcement to the IBM FinOps suite around. We originally created Kubecost to do exactly this, to help teams understand and optimize their Kubernetes spend. It sounds like it's a small number of things, right? Two big things. I want to know how much I'm spending in Kubernetes, and I want to optimize that and become more efficient based on the amount of money that I'm spending on Kubernetes. But in practice, it's really challenging. I think we discovered that it was challenging all the way back at the inception of our company in 2019 when we started an open source project called OpenCost. Our company and this solution was built by two former Google teammates. They actually met on their first day at work roughly 12 years ago at Google. And they were asked to start working on this project nicknamed Borg. Borg later became this open source project that is only second to Linux in terms of popularity and usage, called Kubernetes. Today, it's used by more than 10,000 FinOps and engineering teams. It's been downloaded more than 12 million times. We believe there's over 160,000 teams that are currently using Kubecost, and it's managing over $5 billion worth of Kubernetes cloud spend. The reason it was created by these former Google teammates was that as they were working on this project that became Kubernetes, two things became very clear for them. Number one, the teams that were working with containerized applications and using this Borg platform were the ones that were generating the highest costs of all application development teams across Google. And number two, they were also the teams that had the least amount of telemetry, metrics, data, and visibility into what was driving those costs and how they might be able to reduce those costs without sacrificing things like performance and stability and reliability. So the need became very clear to them that they had to build something that could solve the same problems that they were encountering themselves. As Kubernetes use has exploded over the last 5 to 10 years, so have the costs associated with it. And it's largely due to the complexity, the kind of native inherent complexity built into Kubernetes and the environments where they're leveraging Kubernetes to manage and orchestrate, thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands or even millions of containers. There is a need for teams to be able to see both Kubernetes and cloud costs because they're incredibly intermingled with each other. You can't run Kubernetes without some of the traditional cloud services, cloud tools, cloud products that are necessary to get everything to work right. And if you can't break that down by team and by application, by cost center, product, or project, it's really difficult for an organization to understand what they're investing in, and then impossible to be able to become more efficient and optimize the investments that they're making in things like Kubernetes and cloud costs. And this is because Kubernetes is a black box. It is really difficult to get data out of it, and that's why teams historically have struggled so much to understand and control their costs. What we decided needed to be built was a solution that could provide that visibility and provide optimization opportunities to reduce cost, and then also controls and guardrails and golden paths and things that can help protect the savings optimizations that the teams make, so that it's not this perennial once or twice a year project to go and reduce Kubernetes costs between those times where it continues to creep up. We also heard from teams that they needed simple automations that would remove the human element from the heavy lifting and the ongoing care and feeding of Kubernetes environments, so that they could save money. When you introduce too many people, they make mistakes, and in many cases, removing as many of those elements and kind of adopting the if it can be automated safely and reliably, it should approach to things, you're able to reduce costs and shorten the time loop between decision making as well. These are things that developers need. These are things that developers historically haven't had, and giving it to them makes an incredibly large impact on costs and efficiency. This is the entirety of the IBM FinOps suite, led by IBM Cloudability, which is, I think, in our opinion, and certainly the opinion of industry-leading analysts and our customers, the leading FinOps solution, end-to-end FinOps solution that's available for your entire cloud spend. We also have Cloudability savings automation, capabilities to take advantage of things like reserved instances and savings plans and cloud commitment programs that offer discounts, and IBM Turbonomic, which helps to automate the continuous process of optimizing cloud applications for performance, and Kubecost slots in very nicely here, where we're able to extend that to all things Kubernetes. By joining the IBM FinOps suite, we're really kind of strengthening that suite, adding depth, adding broad coverage and support, and also providing tools specifically to the DevOps and Kubernetes application development teams that need to put these tools into practice as early as possible in the software development lifecycle. You probably hear a lot about shift left, right? Shift security left, shift decision-making left, shift savings left. And by introducing tools that software developers can use in the construction and the deployment and the operation of Kubernetes applications, we're able to do exactly that. We're able to empower them to understand what their costs are, understand the impact of the decisions that they're making when it comes to provisioning resources or building workflows or tuning them. And they're able to make a big cost impact in a positive way before it even starts to show up in an AWS or an Azure bill or some other cost metric.
Hey, Joe,
yes,
quick question. Can you use Kubecost with Red Hat OpenShift?
You absolutely can. And Red Hat OpenShift, that's a great question. Red Hat OpenShift is a managed Kubernetes platform. Just like Amazon EKS is, just like Azure AKS, like GKE, and a number of other managed Kubernetes platforms. Those platforms make it a little bit easier for teams to work with Kubernetes, but we absolutely integrate with Red Hat. And in fact, we have a certified operator that's available to spin up as an add-on with just a single click. So you're using Red Hat OpenShift and you're looking to be able to get more visibility around Kubernetes spending and utilization and figure out ways to optimize that to spend less without affecting performance, Kubecost is an easy and fantastic way to get that done. Thanks for jumping in with the question there. We do offer, I think, we round out a full stack solution for FinOps by joining the IBM FinOps suite. So Kubecost, Cloudability, and Turbonomic are the end-to-end solution to cover all of the needs of a modern software organization when it comes to managing their cloud investment, reducing it, optimizing it, allocating it, and other FinOps practices. We allow this suite of FinOps solutions now to extend deeply into Kubernetes environments wherever they are. And I really mean wherever they are. You might be running Kubernetes on IBM mainframe to take advantage of the density capabilities. You might be running it on-prem for non-production environments, either for security reasons or privacy reasons or for cost savings reasons. And yet you still want to be able to do the same kind of calculations, allocations, show back, charge back, reporting, etc. about those on-premise environments. And Kubecost is a self-hosted, customer-managed solution that works in any on-premise Kubernetes environment, including air-gapped. So if you have needs around that level of privacy and security or compliance and regulatory, we have solutions that will work even in those. And last but not least, we do provide real-time visibility and insights. Every 15 seconds, the data is being updated, and it helps teams understand very quickly what the impact of their decision-making is. That way, you don't wake up with that surprise bill on a Monday that you realized you spent $10,000 training a new AI model over the weekend or something like that. It's really easy to catch and prevent those cost overruns from happening when you've got real-time data and you're a developer that can make a quick impact. Why is this also important? It's important because Kubernetes is everywhere these days. I think the saying over the last few years has been that software is eating the world. I would argue that it's well into the digestive process now, and it's Kubernetes that's really starting to eat the world. A couple of examples of that, right? Most modern vehicles that have remote start capability require an app on your smartphone to be able to remote start your car. This is true of companies like BMW and others. If you don't have that Kubernetes application running on your smart device, you're not going to be able to take advantage of that awesome feature that car has. That's running on Kubernetes. So you might think of as an automotive manufacturer is also a software developer. And the same goes for another one, Traeger grills, right? The cool little pellet grills that you see maybe at Costco. Those have a companion application that are required to be able to take advantage of that product. So while they make barbecue grills, they're also a Kubernetes software application developer. And you may be with an organization that has a similar story. Today, 84% of organizations are either using Kubernetes in a meaningful way or they're evaluating its use in some real meaningful way as well. And 72% of those organizations are only doing minimal things to optimize their costs. That's a lot of wasted money out there that could be better leveraged if companies were to use a solution such as Kubecost. So today I want to take a stroll through a couple of FinOps related things at the intersection of Kubernetes and this practice. I want to talk about what does effective FinOps adoption look like? What does it look like for Kubernetes environments? Why is it more complex in the world of Kubernetes to do FinOps? And how can teams overcome these challenges and rise to the level? I'm going to start with a little who's who about FinOps, right? There's a lot of key personas involved, and I think that the number of key personas grows every FinOps X meeting that we have, right, or conference. But the central ones really have always been, and I think will always continue to be, leadership, right? The people who have mandates and initiatives to sharpen the pencil, to improve efficiency, to adopt a culture of efficiency. You have finance, who are very familiar working with facts and figures when it comes to the costs, the investments, the ROI that companies are achieving from those investments. And you have product, right? Product that is helping steer the roadmap and the things that engineering is working on next, lining up sprints, listening to the needs of the market and of the customer. And then for Kubecost, the most important persona or the stakeholder in this FinOps these FinOps activities for us is the engineering department, the people who are hands on keyboard writing application code that's going to eventually turn into the next cool app that you want to download and use. These people have tremendous influence and power over what's being provisioned, how software is being architected, how networks and systems function, and all the way down to the granular level of decision making around which resources to spin up and which resources not to spin up. They have this outsized influence over how these applications perform. They're not always motivated, though, to understand the cost implications of that. They want it to be functional. They want it to be performant. They want it to be reliable and stable so that they don't have to wake up and fix something in the middle of the night over a weekend. And so while they have a tremendous amount of influence and control over these costs, their motivations might not always be the same as, for example, practitioners in a FinOps department or those in finance. And that's historically been because they haven't had the right tools to do it. To do FinOps right, it's really 3 iterative phases. And this may be, a repeat of well-trodden information for those, but we always use it as kind of a centering force or, a grounding force for us in the decisions that we make around our product and how customers use it. This first phase is to inform, right? We need cost visibility. We can't even take the first step if we don't have visibility. How would we ever be able to right size or reduce costs if we don't know what they are? It would be blindly throwing darts at a dartboard, and that's never going to work out well. So this first phase is to inform the entire organization, and especially those in the need to know what the costs are, how they allocate by the different business dimensions that are important to that particular team, that particular business, and to be able to break that down into the business metrics that make sense, right? Whether that's by namespace or by label or by cluster or by team, business unit, product, project, you name it. Kubecost has very broad flexibility in terms of how granular you would like to do allocations and show back and charge back and things of that nature with Kubernetes costs. The second phase of doing FinOps right is to optimize, right? Take the powerful information that you now have about utilization and cost and sharpen the pencil. Figure out how to do more with less. In many cases, it's as easy as tuning a workload to perform better on a particular environment, or reducing the unused or underused capacity that's being requested in terms of CPU and RAM and other software horsepower that you need to be able to get that application to run. Finding sources of waste is a huge savings opportunity for teams that are leveraging Kubernetes. You wouldn't believe the amount of detritus, the garbage and the waste that's generated in the process of building and operating Kubernetes applications, especially if it's at a company that has been doing this over time. Fun fact, like a load balancer, when you stand up a cluster, doesn't go away when you take down that cluster. It still floats out there and costs you money. Kubecost has tools to discover all of these orphaned and unused resources and identify areas where waste is occurring and can be shored up a little bit to save cost. And then the last phase.
And that's being done in real time?
That's being done in real time. So every 15 seconds, we're getting cues from the software that are elevated to engineering visibility for opportunities to right size. And you can look back at a trail of data that goes back, months and years to be able to have that conversation with engineering teams where they don't feel like it's risky to make those right sizing optimizations. You can come to them with with a heavy body of evidence that helps them take the next right step. So the last is to operate, right? Let's do this. Let's scale up. Let's scale down. Let's scale in and out as needed. Let's set forecasts. Let's set budgets. Let's alert the right people when we reach milestones of spend within those budgets. And in some cases, let's put hard and fast prevention tools like controls and cluster admission controllers to prevent unnecessary or unwanted spend, because the savings that we've realized in this optimized phase are ones that we want to keep. We don't want to have to play whack-a-mole with our costs twice a year or every quarter. We want to be able to get the long-lasting benefits of those optimizations. So how do we do this? The first step for Inform is to get that visibility, to get that data. Kubecost interfaces with all of the cost and usage data from AWS, from Azure, GCP. We offer the ability for customers to create their own custom price lists for running on-prem. And with that, you gain, for some customers, for the first time, an expansive and holistic view of all of your cloud costs and all of the utilization within Kubernetes across the board and in a single view, right? A single tool that provides all of that visibility. And this helps teams develop their KPIs, develop what good looks like at their organization, analyze their cloud spend, talk about it, debate it, and then correlate those things to business outcomes and ROI, and continuously make teams aware via reporting tools and alerts and notifications how they're doing with their cloud spend and whether things are trending up, trending down, whether they're gaining in efficiency or whether they're maybe slipping backwards into some not so great habits. So this first phase is done largely by data gathering and then making that available in a non-complex way that's easy to work with, easy to share, and gets everybody on the same page of understanding about utilization and cost. In the next phase, we want to optimize. And so we're using data, we're leveraging data that we've just gleaned from this first phase of Inform to do things like right-sizing workloads, eliminating orphaned resources, managing and optimizing things like persistent volumes and S3 and other related storage costs. And then we're also empowering them to leverage automation to reduce waste. And this is important because in many cases, the speed of this application development is unbelievable when compared to maybe just a few years ago or a decade ago. Teams that are writing and operating Kubernetes applications are not typically making updates once a month or once a week. They're doing it in some cases hundreds of times a day or even hundreds of times an hour. And to be able to move at that kind of a pace while still keeping controls on your costs and optimizing them requires either a very large army of really smart, fast-fingered humans or some intelligent automation to be able to do that. Some things to consider because you're in this optimize phase are savings opportunities like reserved instances, savings plans, being able to make a commitment to your CSP to gain some discounts, and other third-party tools that help all of this work like Carpenter and others. And the last thing I think that's really important here, and we'll touch on it more in this presentation, is cross-team collaboration. Communication is the key that unlocks getting FinOps to work for your organization. It takes a village, right? And if that village isn't communicating and sharing a lexicon, sharing goals, sharing KPIs and how they measure things, it's going to be an uphill, virtually impossible battle. Last but not least, this operate phase, right? This is where we're applying all of the learnings and all of the actions. And this is in itself an iterative, like infinity cycle, right? You're learning and you're adapting from these two first phases, and you're really kind of putting it into motion here. And you continuously refine it. You find things that work, you find things that don't work, ways of communicating, tools, data, reports. Each organization is going to have its own unique dynamics, its own kind of personality and character, and what works well for one might not work well for the other. So you need to adapt it to work for you and to achieve the goals that you're looking for. There are ways to regular meetings, alerting and notifications and budgets, not to tell people they're doing something wrong, but inform them that maybe there's something they could do better. Using these governance tools, implementing compliance monitoring, and talking it out, whether it's at the water cooler or in a meeting room, or at a pub. It doesn't really matter where you're doing it. The fact is that you have to do it. You have to communicate and collaborate across the entire organization. And because of all these things, because of the volatility, the fact that I might have 2,000 containers today and 8,000 containers tomorrow, and it doesn't always just kind of follow, the sensible path of developing apps, increasing the size of those apps, adding customers, right? Because it's such a dynamic environment. I think Kubernetes is like hard mode FinOps, right? You've got the difficulty level turned all the way up on trying to do FinOps. And the costs are really high. We have many customers that have, tens of millions to hundreds of millions of dollars invested in Kubernetes every single year. And so improving it by 5% or even 2%, much less 30%, which is kind of common for us to be able to achieve with our customers, it represents a tremendous amount of savings. What we're really trying to do with Kubernetes when it comes to this FinOps practice is maybe no easier shown or stated than what I've got here, right? On the left is the dinner bill I get from taking a few friends out to a restaurant, right? We're getting some soup, we're having some soda pop, and the total comes to $10.66, right? Now, if I want to split that with my group, it might be a little difficult to do that in an even, fair way where everybody is paying for what they consumed and what they ordered. What I need is an itemized receipt, something that's a little more similar to what I've got on the right, where I can see that the various different teams, the various different products, the various different projects have finite associated costs that are based on actual utilization, right? They're paying for what they ordered. That soup and that soda is not going to get picked up in a bill by somebody else sitting on that team. So you need to be able to break these costs down, and this is not available from your cloud service provider. This data doesn't, just come out of the box when you start using AWS or Azure or a cloud managed service like OpenShift. These metrics are going to be highly personalized, but this is also outdated data, right? This money has been spent. The soup and the soda was eaten and got drank. So this is all after the fact data. What we need is to be able to get this much closer to real time to be able to do things correctly. In these, what we call cloud native environments, or born in the cloud environments, right, where Kubernetes has been there either from inception, or an organization is moving their applications from older, more monolithic architectures to microservices and containerization and Kubernetes to manage all of it. We see that it's just accelerating. Global spending for cloud and global spending for Kubernetes is up like double digits every year, and is probably going to be for the foreseeable future. And managing those costs, because of the dynamic resource allocation, because of the ability for Kubernetes to scale up, scale down, in and out, on demand, in some cases using full automation to do it, managing those costs is more complex than ever. And yet FinOps is something that can help us bridge that gap, right? It can help us maintain our innovative edge, It can help us beat out our competition. It can help us delight our customers, get features and fixes into their hands faster, and yet still do that in a highly efficient and cost-effective manner. To do that, we need FinOps, though. I've mentioned some of the reasons why it's really difficult. I want to dive in just a little bit deeper and talk a little bit more about why it's harder to do in Kubernetes. And the first
I was going to ask the question, and maybe that leads into this, right? So what if the customer already has a FinOps solution in place? Why do they need Kubecost?
Yeah, I guess my first question right back would be, do you have all the data and all the visibility that you need from Kubernetes to be able to do effective FinOps? If you're using Cloudability today, that answer is you probably have good visibility, but you still may have some blind spots. Your on-prem is not something that Cloudability is able to get visibility and optimization solutions for. If you're doing it in an air-gapped environment, that's also not going to work. If you were in a relatively maybe obscure or off the beaten path flavor of Kubernetes or a service provider, whether that's a DigitalOcean or an Ollie Cloud or something like that, that may be gaps in your visibility as well. And it is both irksome and it is incomplete to do FinOps without all of the data and the visibility that you need. It means that the next two steps, the optimize and the operate phases, are going to be incomplete as well. So if you're already doing FinOps, I think the first question to ask is, are we doing FinOps for Kubernetes? And if the answer is yes, I think you follow it up with, do we have all the data that we need? Or do we have all the visibility? Do we have all of the metrics? Do we have all of the data that we need? And if the answer there is still yes, do your developers have it? Do they have it in time to be able to affect the outcome early in the software development cycle? Are they using a tool that they're happy with and one that they're engaged in using for the success of their team? So yeah, I think that Kubecost is very unique in the marketplace. We didn't have a lot of competitors doing the same things that we did, which is why we made a great addition to the team. So resource abstraction and granularity, right? If you think about Kubernetes, it's like this complicated nesting doll scenario where I have at its highest level, clusters, and within it I have containers and then pods and then nodes, and then I actually have things running inside of those. I need to be able to break down costs and utilization across all of those dimensions. And the more granular I get, the more accurate and finite my data about usage and cost is going to become. So you need a solution that can get very, very granular. And I would argue that Kubecost has the most granular visibility and reporting capabilities in the space, right? Of all of our competitors. We can get down to those deep and granular levels of measurement and visibility so that teams can allocate 100% of their Kubernetes costs and do it in this precision manner. The second why it's more difficult in Kubernetes to do FinOps is the shared elements of working with a multi-tenant cluster, multi-team engineering environment, multi-environment, the multis, right? Like when you have more than one team building applications, testing applications, and running applications inside of a single cluster, it starts to look like a hotel with a lot of different guests staying in different rooms, consuming different amounts of things that have different associated costs. And to be able to net all of that out and assign those costs accurately and to do it with all of the costs across the board is something that's historically been very, very difficult and is a problem that Kubecost tackles. So it's easy when every team gets a cluster and you have these nice clean guardrails between teams, between apps, between environments, but that's just not the way that Kubernetes works, and it's not the way that teams typically work with Kubernetes. If they did, their costs would be even higher than they already are. So being able to get great intelligence and information on the shared aspects of operating Kubernetes is monumentally important. The last is this concept of ephemeral and transient containers, things that show up, generate cost, and then go away. Sometimes, for mysterious reasons, even for engineers that are working with Kubernetes. So the fact that these elements, these resources that generate cost come and go, sometimes in minutes, sometimes in seconds, sometimes days or months, create a constantly moving target for FinOps people that are trying to pin down, why do we have this? Is this necessary? Is the cost that we're paying for it appropriate? Are there opportunities to right size this? Sometimes those questions have to be asked after that resource has already gone away. So to be able to move those things closer to the real-time domain is really important. These short-lived resources can be something that end up as orphaned or unaccounted for resources and can continue to pile up cost on teams over the long run. So the summary of these three things, I hope, helps kind of reinforce that hard mode FinOps statement that I made a little earlier. And then the last two, right? There are limitations of cloud cost allocations when it comes to Kubernetes, right? There's really no native support. There's really limited native tools for Kubernetes cost allocation. It's really hard just using like cloud provider billing data to cross-reference costs, assign them to teams, and understand that granular data that I need. And then the last bit of this is that right-sizing these resources works a lot different than right-sizing more traditional cloud services, right? Where maybe I have different service levels, maybe I have different packages, maybe I have a very easy to understand utilization-based pricing matrix for some of those cloud services. And the Kubernetes specific costs, things that are generated inside the cluster, they break all those rules, and it's much harder to track them, and it's much harder to understand them, especially for people outside of the engineering department. So the approach that Kubecost takes to be able to solve this for engineering teams, for FinOps teams, is number one, to provide them with really granular real-time visibility, right? Help them break down those costs in ways that make sense and are meaningful to the business, give them accurate real-time show back, charge back, and monitoring capabilities so that they have the data they need to continuously be on top of those costs and understand who's generating them, why, and then move to the next solution, which is to provide them with cost savings insights and even automation to help drive savings, reduce spend without sacrificing the important parts of aspects of performance and reliability and stability, so that they can become more efficient over time. This comes down to right-sizing container requests, cleaning up those abandoned or orphaned workloads, resources, assets that are costing money, to be able to do really cool things like cluster turndown. If I have a test or a development environment and everybody goes home on a Friday, I'd love to be able to automatically turn the lights off on those clusters. And then on Monday morning, before everybody shows back up, use automation to turn those clusters back up and make them available for my engineering team to get right back to work. Those are automated capabilities of Kubecost that can save a lot of money and help us be more sustainable in our use of Kubernetes, because Kubernetes is hungry for electricity too, so there is an associated carbon footprint, and Kubecost actually does have solutions around measuring and showing what your associated carbon costs are based on the resources that you're provisioning and the decisions that you're making. Third, yep. Kubecost. Hey. Yeah, go right ahead.
And let me jump in here for just a second. I was going to say, hey team, let's take the opportunity to ask questions. We can do that in chat while we've got Joe on the line. This is a great opportunity. It's a great product. Everyone has Kubernetes, and everybody's looking at cost savings and operational efficiencies. Let's ask some questions in chat. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, I'll take any and all questions. And this third piece is that we introduce guardrails and governance for Kubernetes, right? Because doing this and then setting it and forgetting it and walking away just doesn't work. Those costs will continue to creep back up again, and sometimes they come back with a vengeance. So you need to be able to predict those costs. You need to be able to get notified about budgets running amok. You need to be able to look at data over long periods of time to understand that, hey, if you're running an application that gets lots of traffic on Black Friday, right sizing in that time of utilization and use is probably a bad idea, right? You might end up with customers unable to access your application and spend their money with you. So it's a big thing to take account of, but using guardrails and governance and tools that help preserve those savings over a long period of time is how you ultimately become more efficient over time and adopt this kind of culture of efficiency within your engineering organizations.
Hey, Joe, there seems like there could be a little bit of overlap with like Turbonomic. Is there any way that you could use the operational efficiencies, automations of Turbonomic along with Kubecost?
Absolutely can. In fact, we launched our first integration that is now in beta with Turbonomic, where we've brought some additional right sizing and cost optimization tools into Kubecost that historically were only available in Turbonomic. So from our savings page, there are additional savings opportunities for customers that have Turbonomic that wouldn't be visible to customers that don't have Turbonomic. And you can ultimately leverage those automated optimizations to go even deeper on the cost savings than you could do if it was just Kubecost standalone or just Turbonomic standalone. There's a great better together story there where teams can automate more and save more by using both of those solutions. We feel like FinOps is always going to be a team sport. I mentioned earlier that this cross-team collaboration is monumental. It's the centerpiece of this. If you're not doing collaboration across teams and you're doing FinOps in silos, I'd argue that you're not really doing FinOps. You're just running reports, and you're kind of looking at data myopically in many cases. So this cross-team collaboration is important because it helps everybody get on the same page with their goals, helps everybody get on the same page in terms of the ways they measure how they are achieving those goals through KPIs or OKRs or other means of milestone checking. It helps them become more cost efficient through communication, right? If I don't have a finance person or a FinOps person asking their engineering colleagues and teammates, why did our costs go up this last month? Why did they go down? Did we launch a new application? Did we deprecate an application? What's this variance that we're seeing? If there's not that communication, those questions aren't being asked, then nobody's going to investigate the reason why, and ultimately maybe determine that it can be made more efficient and cost less. So it's important for the cost efficiency. It's also important for all the strategic planning. If I don't know what my costs are for a Kubernetes application, then that means I don't know what the COGS are. I don't know the cost of goods sold, which means I don't know my gross margin, which means I don't know if we're even profitable as a business. It's amazing how quickly that trickles all the way up to leadership pains and needs, just because the engineering team couldn't get a bead on their Kubernetes costs and optimize them. Getting these three teams to work together can be a challenge, right? They don't exactly all sit at the same lunch table every day. Finance, DevOps, and engineering are kind of the trifecta when it comes to doing FinOps for Kubernetes. Yes, there are lots of other stakeholders involved, as we mentioned earlier, but I think that having these three teams get on the same page long before you start looking at tools to adopt and processes and procedure and process documentation and who's going to do what and how frequently we're going to meet. I think it's important for these three teams to get together and start to lay out what are the pains, what are the needs, what are the gaps, What are the goals? How are we going to move forward in this project successfully? I think that you need to create a language, right? There should be a shared lexicon between these three teams, and you should have the ability to do regular and rapid reviews of your cloud spend. Start it as a once a month event. Try and move that to a bi-monthly event if it's possible. Time that around the times that accounting closes the books on a monthly basis. And you may need to do that in advance of those books closing, or do that right before and right after. But having a regular, FinOps council meeting of sorts within your organization is a cornerstone of this.
Yep.
Other tips, don't make this accusatory. Don't tell people, hey, why did you spend this money? Why did you go over budget? I think it's great to celebrate some wins. Don't make it always negative. Don't make this a finger pointing exercise. And then find ways to make it more interesting. Do hackathons to figure out how to save cost, become more efficient, get better data, implement better practices. Include things like cloud efficiency as a design constraint when you're doing the early design and mapping phases of something that you're ultimately going to build out. I think these are all ways that can help you get there.
So hey, Joe, it looks like we did get a question. How closely does Kubecost update lifecycle track the Kubernetes minor release update lifecycle?
Very closely. Because we're tapped into the cloud native space, we work closely with folks, that are maintainers. I know that we've done some maintenance ourselves. I don't have like a number, like X number of days, but we are very fast followers on updating to accommodate new releases and changes within the Kubernetes spec and the API itself.
Okay. Hey, one more question too. So say a customer goes down the path, they decide to buy Kubecost. How quickly can they get a return on investment?
That's also a great question. So Kubecost can be deployed. I don't want to say installed, deployed. We put an agent on each cluster. It can be deployed with a single command in about a minute. We use a Helm chart to deploy it, so it's very familiar and comfortable for engineers that are familiar working with Kubernetes. This is kind of their preferred method of deploying. And within about 5 minutes, you're going to start to get the first data coming back to you about cost and utilization. And that's coming from the agents themselves that are collecting that telemetry and data and sending it to the cluster that you designate as your primary. Remember, this isn't SaaS at this point. This is on-prem. So all of this data that's moving around, the telemetry that's being collected, is happening within the privacy of your own network. It's fully under your control and it doesn't leave your environment. But within about 5 minutes, you start to get some ROI back in the form of cost and utilization data that you maybe have not seen before. And then at the next time that your cloud billing data, whether that's like the CUR report or cost and utilization report from one of your cloud providers, becomes available, it reconciles the cost and the utilization data with your actual bill from the cloud so that you get, down to the penny accuracy, and everything nets out to be the same. And usually we're really close on that reconciliation, but it doesn't always account for things like savings plans and RIs,
Sure.
and negotiated discounts. So you within 24 hours you see the whole picture, but even within that first 5 minutes you start to get real meaningful ROI back on using the tool.
Nice. Next question. Can Kubecost integrate with ServiceNow to get ticket approvals before automated adjustments of workloads?
That's actually a feature request that we have that is relatively high up on our priority list. So similar to like a GitHub Actions integration, right? What I'm assuming is being asked is, can we approve right sizing requests through a formal process like a ServiceNow ticketing workflow? The answer is we hope we'll be able to provide that to you soon. I would encourage you to send an email to team@kubecost.com, just requesting that feature so that we can update you individually as soon as that's released. And I don't want to discount the fact that we have extensive robust REST APIs that underpin our entire solution. It's all built on an API first platform. And there may be some creative ways of getting that done today that I'm not aware of, only because I haven't worked with a customer myself to do that. So if you do send an email, I promise to dig up an existing method if one exists, and otherwise update you on when we'd have some ServiceNow integration to fit the requests that you've got.
Perfect.
We're getting into the home stretch here. So this is an example of one of the reports that you might share across a collaborative team when the time comes to start talking about that on a monthly basis. And I think this is a big. Here's my myth buster, right? One of the most debated things about Kubernetes costs is whether developers even care about it, right? Are they motivated to care about their Kubernetes costs? Do they want to be more efficient? Are they do they dream about optimizing their environments to be, the lowest cost possible for the highest performance? I think there's many engineers out there that would say, no, I want to build cool apps, right? I want to build code, and I want it to, I want to build good software, and I want people to use it. And I don't really think about costs. But the reality is today, if you're not an efficient Kubernetes developer, then you are probably, maybe your resume is getting skipped over by somebody who is, right? I think that the competitive best Kubernetes application developers that are, writing code in 2025 are doing it with FinOps in mind, with cost efficiency in mind and optimization in mind. And if you're not, you're probably going to be asked to become more efficient and asked to understand how you can do things in a more optimized manner pretty soon. So take it upon yourself to learn about how this works. Take it upon yourself to try our free tools like Kubecost Free and OpenCost, which is the open source solution that we originally donated to the CNCF. They cost you nothing but a bit of your time, and I bet you'll learn some pretty cool stuff and certainly wrap your hands around some awesome tooling. I think, this is really like the litmus test for whether your engineering team needs it. Do they have the right tools? Is cost an important consideration in what you're doing? Is efficiency a part of your culture? And if the answer is no to all of these, you're probably very early on in your FinOps journey for Kubernetes. But if you're answering yes to some of these things, maybe you're somewhere in that walk to even run phase. Just to dive like a little bit deeper, because these slides are going to be made available to everybody after this. I wanted to just put some information in here where you can have some real tactical, like hands-on next steps that you can do for how you approach these three phases, right? So how you instantiate allocation standards across things like namespaces and labels and tags, how you do multi-cluster aggregations, how you collaborate and share a sense of ownership when it comes to the data, when it comes to the metrics and the telemetry, by implementing cross-functional team communications and educating people within the organization on the things that drive costs and what is considered unnecessary or wasteful within your environment. And then how to do things like chargeback and showback, what the differences are between those things and what the implications that are kind of on the receiving end of understanding, hey, these are your costs. This is what you racked up, right? Working on that app last week, last month, yesterday. Those are important to be able to share with the team. Phase, I think that there's some tactical things you can really do around auto scaling and right sizing, using things like cluster autoscaler or pod right sizing tools, Carpenter and other free tools that are out there to be able to accomplish this work. The next is to be able to understand and optimize around things that maybe aren't necessarily inside the cluster in Kubernetes, things like network and storage costs, persistent volumes, understanding how you can leverage a tool like Kubecost to understand where there's more traffic representing higher costs between nodes and clusters in my environment, right? What's talking to each other in ways that's generating a bill for me? And are there ways to optimize that? And last, on the operator side, these are ways that you can implement some additional governance, right? You can set up anomaly detection. We have anomaly detection that's powered by some machine learning in our solution that'll help analyze vast amounts of data and then spot things that could be anomalous and might ultimately lead to really high costs that could be avoided easily if you were able to detect those and get alerted on them, like Kubecost provides. Also, usage-based alerts, right? So if I have teams that are overutilizing resources, I want to be able to go and have a conversation, ask why, and kind of nip that in the bud before we encounter some over budget or cost overruns. Cost variance monitoring, we said it was going to cost this. Surprise, it costed a lot more. I don't think anybody's ever surprised by it costing less. That's certainly something that we're all aiming for, but understanding what the root cause of that is. And then the last bit of this, being able to look forward into the future, to plan and to budget, to set up forecasts, to be able to understand what the long-term implications on our total spend with Kubernetes is based on the minute and sometimes granular decisions and actions that we're taking today, and then doing regular reviews.
Hey, Joe, from a delivery standpoint, FinOps seems to be really cloud native, really advanced. Is this a SaaS only?
This is actually available in both a SaaS and a self-hosted solution. The vast majority of Kubecost's existing users and customers deploy it on-premise, self-hosted, not just on-premise, but they host it themselves, they manage it themselves. It allows them to keep all of the data completely private. There's no telemetry that leaves their environment and comes, to Kubecost. And that is the preferred way for most teams to use Kubecost is in a self-hosted or customer managed method. But we also do have a SaaS option for customers that want to offload some of the maintenance and the overhead and the care and the feeding of keeping Kubecost up to date, running its dependencies. They want to maybe focus on building the next great app as fast as they can and getting it out the door because they're going to make billions of dollars doing it. We offer a single tenant hosted solution where it can be hosted in your cloud environment of choice, but Kubecost experts will handle the deployment, the configuration, and the care and upkeep of the solution in your environment.
Okay. Hey, so any kind of final words of wisdom for the audience, Joe?
All of these challenges that we've talked about today are things that Kubecost can help with. We have a free version. You can go to kubecost.com and you can launch it with just an email address. And as we mentioned before, start seeing the value of it in 5 minutes. And this is something that if your engineering teams aren't using yet, is going to be their new favorite tool, right? Rookie of the Year solution to help them do FinOps for Kubernetes. And with that, I'd love any other questions that the audience might have. Hope you learned something valuable from this. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Joe. Folks, we're down to one last session. We're going to have office hours, so you can ask more questions additionally at 2:30. So look to see you guys then. With that, I think that's a wrap.
Thanks, Steve. Take care, everyone.